All right, welcome back. My name is Chris Sachinelli, and I get to build, buy, and sell simple profit businesses every single day. And today we're going to be talking about how to find deal flow, right? So whether you're an equity scout with us and you're trying to find new, relationships to be able to drive your business forward, you're a business broker trying to find deals, or you're a deal buyer, deal maker, trying to find something on the market to be able to build your portfolio, right? Whatever the case may be, if you're in this build, buy, sell game, there's a why in terms of why you need to be able to know how to find deal flow. Deal flow is everything. This entire game, in fact, comes down to finding deal flow. In fact, a lot of the time, effort, and energy, a lot of the capital resources, the intellectual property investment, right? The energy, the investment of energy, all of these things that we take a lot of intentional time to be able to do comes down to how do we, as a micro private equity firm with Bootstrapper Capital, design a better mousetrap to be able to get better deal flow, right? A lot of the time, in order to win inside of this build, buy, sell game, it comes down to being able to find the best possible deal and get the best possible deal flow, right? If you can buy right, you could typically end right. Buy bad, end bad, right? So being able to have good deal flow is critically important, right? Before we, get into how to find deal flow, we should probably define, what is deal flow? What are we even talking about? What is deal flow that you just said 80 times the past 2.5 minutes? I mean, deal flow is technically, the flow of deal is really the rate at which, potential investments or target acquisitions, like things in which you would want to buy that fit your thesis, come to your attention. Right. The important thing here is that these are things that fit your thesis, right? If it doesn't meet the mark in terms of what your investment thesis is, then then it doesn't really qualify as an opportunity for you. Thus, it is not deal flow, right? So you got to be targeted. You got to be specific. You got to know the persona of your deal, and you got to be able to find the channels and avenues that will allow more of those specific types of opportunities to come across your desk. Right. Again, it's really important because the more deal flow you have, the better your deal flow, the more opportunities you have to kiss frogs. And keep in mind, this game of build, buy, sell, there's going to be a lot of frogs. You gotta kiss a lot of frogs to get to your prince or your princess, right? So you gotta find you gotta go through a lot of bad to get to like the one good. And the good thing is, right? The good thing is, remember, there's no called strikes in investing. So you can sit at the plate as long as you want and you don't have to swing your bat. That's what that means, right? No called strikes, meaning you could watch your pitch, and wait for the perfect pitch for you to be able to swing, right? Because the only thing you need to do is make sure you don't lose any money, right? And in case you forget that rule, go back to if you forget rule number 2, go back to rule number 1. Just don't lose money. Right. So there's no called strikes. You just want to be able to have a lot of opportunities. Right. And the more opportunities, the more conversations you have, the better you'll understand the market, the better you'll get at this game of doing deals. Right. So there's really nothing lost in just having a lot of conversations and having a really high velocity of deal flow. You can always walk away from a conversation. You could always say no. You could always choose to not do it. At least you have the freedom to decide. Right. And you kind of want to do this. You want to be able to experience it and get a lot of conversations going, and also diligence is going, so you could go through the process. Right now that we understand like why it's important, we know our why, right? Again, always lead with the why, know your why, and then follow your why with a how, right? Who's going to do what, how? Well, you're going to do this every day, and this is how, right? So you got traditional methods of building up deal flow or finding deals, traditional works still, right? Traditional isn't bad. Old school isn't necessarily worse than the new school. This is like tried and true type of stuff. Networking events work, but it's a grind. You got to commit to the process, right? You got to build up reputation and relationships, but you got to just show up, right? So if you want to do this and you want to really start to build out qualified deal flow, you don't want to be a house cat, right? Just sitting at home waiting for things to come to you. You want to go out there and hunt. You want to make things happen, right? Great way to do that is to go to networking events. I'm sure there's a ton near you. And if there aren't any, create some. Go launch a meetup group, right? I remember when we were building one of our startups, it doesn't have to necessarily do with deal flow, but acquisition, customer acquisition, which is deal flow, which is growth. And we went out and we partnered with Meetup. We launched a whole bunch of meetup groups, and it was a great way to build relationships and drive activity, right? So like, go to these events, whether they exist, go and ride off the curtails of somebody else, path of least resistance. If they don't, given where you are in your neck of the woods, maybe make them, right? Networking events also don't have to always be physical. You can also go virtual, right? Target specific types of industries. Anybody that kind of meets and marries with what it is that you're doing would be a great network to be able to break into. Referrals are really the best way to go, right? But referrals have to be earned. So, referrals, you want to go and tap into folks that you've already worked with. It doesn't have to be doing a deal, right? So it's not like, oh, I did a deal, so now refer me to more deals. But you want to go work with folks that you have, professional relationships with that know you, right? Respect you. And because of that, they're willing to extend off of that relationship, introductions to potential targets and conversations, right? If you can build up a really good referral network, that moves the meter. But it's hard. It takes time, right? Everything worth doing takes time, right? It's all a journey, right? You got to, trust the process, commit to the journey, right? Cold calling works, right? People think that cold calling's dead. Cold calling works. Go put together a lead list. People don't do it anymore. So honestly, it's like, I think it's a unique competitive advantage if you're willing to pick up the phone. If you're willing to go and make 100 or 300 calls a day, I guarantee you're going to find deal flow, right? I'd rather somebody who's going to pick up the phone and make 300 phone calls as opposed to send 300 emails, right? Or hit the easy button or whatever the case may be, right? Cold calling works. It's just that not a lot of people are willing to do it. It takes time. It takes commitment, right? But that's the Bootstrapper way. You got to show up, right? You got to put in the hard work. You got to do the things that other people don't want to do to get to the outcomes that everybody wants, but only a few earn, right? Cold calling is one of those ways. So you can do that. You absolutely can do that, right? If you're focusing on deal flow in, mom and pop small business market, mainstream market, just show up, just knock on the door. That works, right? That works. Direct mail, that's something that like nobody really thinks about too much anymore. It's not where dollars go, but it's like, how much mail are you receiving? The United States U.S. Postal Service still runs, right? We're still investing a ton in the mail infrastructure, right? But like, nobody goes to their mailbox because nobody's sending mail anymore. That could be a unique differentiator, right? Especially if you have a targeted list. Do a handwritten note. Do a handwritten note. If you have a deal that you want to get into, do a handwritten note. Tie it to something nice, right? Nice little mailer. And then do your follow-ups based off of that, right? Mail something out, run your email follow-ups, run your LinkedIn follow-ups, run your cold calls. Hey, you don't know me, but I sent you this in the mail. Did you get it? Right? Whatever this is, it's something. That type of stuff, it works, right? So you can build a business. You could build a list based off of just like traditional grinded out sales tactics and strategies, right? That stuff still works and it still gets deals. Right? You always got to remember, though, this is a relationship game, right? So many of the things that were in the traditional, all relationship based, the stronger the relationships, the easier it becomes, the more of a flywheel it is, right? It begets itself. In the new methods, in the new school, it's no different, right? So it's all about relationships. The only difference between the two, like newer methods, is more of how do I leverage technology better? Right. So instead of having to go and grind it out, which grind it out works. I don't want to say that grind it out is bad, right? Get back to the basics sometimes. The basics work, right? They're basics for a reason because they've been proven to work, right? So don't make it seem like bad, right? Don't make basic feel bad. Basic could be very good. Keep it simple, right? But then there are new school methods that you could leverage, potentially efficiencies and effectiveness to potentially drive incremental volume, right? And that's really what this is. It's more of like a leverage game. It's kind of like a more with less. And oftentimes that's more with less effort, right? Work smart, not hard. But you got to put in work, because all that matters at the end is the outcomes, right? So I don't care how smart you're working if you're not getting any results, right? Do whatever you need to do to be able to get it done. Move the ball down the field. That's what really matters. So I know I'm being a little bit like beating on a dead horse here, but there is an undertone to this video and this narrative of the whole message that I'm trying to send, and that's like, just show up. That's like, do it. Be willing to put in the hard work, because not everybody is, and that's how you're successful at this game, right? That's how you ultimately win. Is you're just willing to do the things that other folks aren't willing to do, and you show up every single day. It's the consistency, it's the repetition. Like, put in the reps. That's what earns the outcomes. There is no easy button, right? So just acknowledge the fact that there's no easy button, but you can leverage some of these new school type of models to try to augment, to make it a little bit potentially easier. Like social media, it works, but I mean, again, it's crowded. It's really crowded out there. So you got to do something different. And the best way to leverage something like social media is to build a personal brand, right? You could build a personal brand, or you could buy it, right? So there is still a strategy where you could leverage social channels and do paid acquisition. And because you're willing to outspend the competition, you could rise to the top. So there is a strategy behind that, but you have to be willing to invest the budget. And if you're bootstrapping on a budget and you don't necessarily have the means to buy the results, right? Another way could be earned media through building a brand, which isn't easy. Like that's actually not easy at all, realistically, but it does work because it helps you build authority. It helps you build trust. It helps you build rapport at scale. And then you can leverage things like you can set up, your social media. You can leverage your social media to be able to launch a newsletter. You could be able to leverage your newsletter to then be able to build a platform where folks get to know you on a consistent basis at scale. And that stuff over time does build really good velocity of pipe, really good velocity of deal flow. But again, it's a commitment game. So you got to see the strategy and then you got to commit to it, right? If you don't want to build your own platform, if you don't want to build your own community, if you don't want to build your own platform, then what you can ultimately do is go to someplace else, go someplace that's already built it, and integrate yourself in a very positive manner, right? So you don't want to go and join a community or a forum and start, spamming everybody. What you want to do is, and this is like with everything else in life, so I know I'm preaching to the choir here and you already know this, but you want to go and integrate yourself into these communities, infiltrate these communities, and add value, right? Always be a value add contributor. People want to work with folks that can add more value, right? The simplest way to move forward in life is to be a person that can add more value to somebody else as opposed to detractor, right? Be a contributor of value, not a detractor of value. And the more value you can add, the more you can scale. And people ask, why does a hedge fund manager go and make, let's just say $20 million a year, and somebody in a blue collar worker who's building something, right? Hedge fund manager who's just moving numbers and not really doing anything, right? At the end of the day, they can make $20 million a year, and a blue collar worker who's actually making something, right, every single day, maybe makes 20,000, right? Why is that? It's all about the leverage and the value in which you can create for somebody else. That hedge fund manager, if they, put together a fund with other people's money and they were able to figure out how to get those people, those accredited investors, institutional investors, they take $100 million and they turn it into $200 million. That's leverage, right? That's leverage of value. So you capture the value in which you create. Right? If you're a blue collar worker and you're stamping one thing out at a time, right? How much margin is in each thing that you're creating, and then how much can you capture for yourself? So you always got to think about the leverage of the value in which you can create for others. The leverage of the value in which you can create for others is oftentimes the leverage and value in which you can capture for yourself, a marginal percentage of that, right? So go into these communities, create value, right? Crowdfunding platforms are okay source because It's a place for somebody to self-select and identify and say, hey, this is the stage that I'm at. And because they're at this stage, they're potentially a good target, right? Because a lot of this comes down to like building a list too. So you got to go fish. You got to go fish in the ponds where people are, right? Inclusive in that, you have the online marketplaces. Those are folks that are literally raising their hands quite literally and saying, hey, like I'm currently for sale, right? So, your acquirers of the world, your flippers of the world, your biz buy sells of the world, these are folks that are at that stage where they want to trade, right? They already want to get into the sale, to the acquisition. So they're very proactive. Now, in this buy sell game for deal flow, you want to find proprietary off market deal flow, right? The best deal flow is proprietary deal flow. The best deal flow is off market deal flow. You want to find, capture, and engage somebody like a year before they decide to go onto to one of these marketplaces and lists, right? That's the type of deal flow that you really want, because that's proprietary deal flow where you have a unique competitive advantage to create value for that person, right? If you could help that person along that journey proactively and create and capture value, very much to the way that we're positioned with our business, right? So we help businesses build wedge equity. Why do we do that? Well, we want you to maximize the value of your business before you get to the exit. It's then a service that we can provide. Because we can provide that service, it's something that you want, right? You want to make more money, not less. So we can help you make more money. We structure it so you don't pay us up front. You pay us over time as we create value. So we have really good positioning into our deal structure. And then everybody's mutually aligned, because if you're getting more and we take a percentage on the brokerage side, we get more. So everybody wins, right? It's a win-win. Really good positioning, right? For a lot of different reasons. Always think about that. We talked about networking events with traditional. Well, new methods like virtual. Like there's so many virtual events. Now it's hard though with virtual events to build real relationships. But what you can do is be strategic. You can pay attention to who's attending. Some of them have, the ability to do side chats and things of that nature. It's a little bit harder. If you could be a speaker at these events, that's a great way to build authority. And then from that authority to drive deal flow, right? I don't want to necessarily go too tremendously deep in terms of this. I think that realistically, we've done a really good job inside of our operating system and inside of Simple Profits as a program, right? To be able to identify growth strategies. And I really do believe that a lot of the things that are tangential to building deal flow are also tangential to like a go-to-market strategy for a company, right? How you get more customers, getting to your first 100 customers, implementing an execution of different strategic strategies and tactics, right? So in this section, I don't want to necessarily do it in terms of like the details, because there's so many, right? In our operating system, we have over 100 different growth strategies. I'm sure half of them you could use to build a better deal flow, a better book of business, and drive additional incremental deal flow. At the end of the day, what you want to find is a problem. You want to identify a problem, a pain, right? What is a problem or a pain that somebody's experiencing? You want to know that you can solve it, right? And then you want to be able to figure out where they live and how you're going to get their attention. Money follows attention, right? So you want to be able to get the attention. You want to be able to develop or land or grow into a channel that allows you to do it. Once you figure that out, once you figure that process out, there's like a level of element of alchemy that can take place. Because once you figure it out and you figured out, okay, that's the person, that's the problem, that's the place that they live, and this is the proposition of a solution. This is how I propose and offer. And once you figure that out and it connects and it's simple and it works, then you can scale that. And it's really healthy to figure out one channel first, focus your effort on one place first, focus your effort on one strategy first, get that to work, and then move on, right? But as you're doing this, always remember, you get more by giving than by taking. All of this is about value creation. You're trying to create value for folks. You don't want to be that person that's in somebody's inbox in the way of the thing that they actually want to deal with, right? You don't want to be a blocker. You want to be an enabler. You should be facilitating folks to value. Great way to facilitate folks to value is to be a giver, right? You get more by giving than by taking. I mean, think about just our ecosystem and what we're developing and building and continually growing here, right? And how much effort, energy, time, right? If you're watching this on YouTube, we put out a ton of content. If you're in our buy sell course in the community, think about the course that you're in right now, right? Think about the amount of time, effort, energy, commitment that went into building this thing, designing this thing, recording this thing, to just give it away for free, right? We're going through the entire buy sell process. Right? I think by the time that we're done, there's probably going to be, I don't know, maybe 20 plus hours worth of content, plus all the templates, and then a whole community to support it, right? Not to mention all the other things that we do to be able to drive value, events, et cetera, et cetera. It's all the concept of give. And hopefully the more that you give, eventually system of reciprocities do kick in, especially if you're well positioned to actually solve somebody's problem. If you really actually provide or possess a solution, and that solution is of equal or greater value at a better price than anybody else in the market, there's a really good chance that folks will go to you. And it's no difference when it comes to finding, building, and acquiring deal flow. It's all about positioning, right? Value propositioning and value positioning, right? For all of those reasons and definitely more, you can 100% get this done, right? If you do want to simplify it and you want to augment your efforts, definitely adopt technology, right? Technology is a tool, right? With new technology like AI coming out and cognitive apps, I'm sure a lot of this stuff is going to get automated away until it can't be anymore, right? Because there is this concept of saturation. So if everybody's doing the same thing, if everybody's hitting the easy button, and that's why I was so over embellishing in terms of the traditional works, go back to the basics. You got to almost think of if everybody's gravitating towards what's easy, right, and leveraging technology, then you almost want to go against the grain and do the things that nobody else is doing, because that's where the attention can actually be gained with a competitive advantage, right? That's where you can still, get a unique competitive advantage to get better return on your effort, right? It's like investing, right? Folks, very common Warren Buffett thing. It's, buy when there's blood in the streets, right? Go in and buy when everybody else is afraid and selling, right? It's the same with this type of stuff. You got to be smart and intentional and purposeful. You can leverage, organization is 100% key though. You always want to keep it simple. You always want to keep it organized. By implementing a CRM system, you can keep it organized. You could build a better sales process, right? Build a better business process. Processes work. Systematization works. Why? Because it simplifies. It allows you to focus on the minimal number of things that need to get done and remove all the distractions and constraints of everything else, right? So it helps simplify in terms of effort, energy, direction, focus, and hopefully at the end, outcomes too, right? But don't rely on the technology, right? Always get back to the basics. Always get back to best practices, right? Be persistent, right? Persistency is key. You got to just show up. Trust the process, commit to the journey. Trust the process, commit to the journey. Trust the process, commit to the journey. You got to just show up, right? Put in the hard work. Do what everybody else isn't willing to do. That's going to put you in the best possible position to get to the outcomes, right? Luck can be manufactured, right? Be persistent, right? Stay organized. We had just talked about that. Keeping track of everything is key because it keeps it simple. That's the best way to keep things simple. Simple is not easy, but simple definitely works, right? So do the things that keep it simple for you so you have a better chance of things working, right? Creativity is key. Again, you got to think about the things that everybody else is not doing. Don't do the things that everybody else is doing because, again, that's where saturation lives in the market, right? How do you get attention, right? You can't stand out in a crowd where everybody is. You got to go to the places where everybody's not, right? That's how you stand out. That's how you get attention, right? I don't want to be in the crowd. I want to be on stage, right? So money follows attention. You got to be creative to be able to figure out how to build awareness and attention. And sometimes the most creative things are the simplest things, and the simplest things are back to the basics. Just show up at a business. Just pick up the phone. Go to the website and use the contact form instead of sending an email. Use the chat bot, right? Like, do the things that sometimes other folks aren't doing, right? Don't do the LinkedIns, don't do the emails, don't do those things, don't do the social media channels, the DMs, right? Do the things that don't scale, right? Especially as you're building up your business, you're building up your deal flow, you're getting to your first 100. You got to do the things that don't necessarily scale. And because of that, you got to tell yourself, focus on quality, not quantity, right? You scale off of quality, because by scaling off of quality, you scale off of results. You want to put yourself in the best possible position to get to the optimal outcomes in as little amount of time with a little amount of capital expenditures or resources, right? You're a resource allocator at the end of the day. So you got to position yourself right? Position yourself to go from good to great. Position yourself to get to the right outcomes. Position yourself appropriately, which could often mean just focus on quality, right? At the end of the day, it's all about relationships. Like, this is a relationship game 100%, right? This is 100%. The build, buy, sell game is 100% a relationship game. I need to know that you're dependable. I need to know that you're credible. I need to know that you have integrity, right? You're honest, you're trustworthy, right? You want to make sure you're in a situation where you're getting into diligence. Like, I don't want to be questioning every aspect of everything when I'm in the diligence stage. So, for all of those reasons and definitely more, it's like the golden rule, right? Live by the golden rule. Just be a good person, be a good human being, pay it forward, give in order to get a little, right? Give a lot to get a little, right? And focus on relationships. All of those things, and definitely probably more, right? Again, go to the growth strategies. A lot of those things are relevant, but like, this is like a high level best practice. If you do this stuff, if you just keep it simple, you get to the basics. Again, that's why I'm like emphasizing there. If you just get to the basics, build a simple lead list, build a target 100, build a target 200, build a target 300, and work it, right? Work it creatively. There's probably a really good chance that you're going to be able to manufacture outcomes. Absolutely anybody, or most folks, for the most part, most folks should have full ability to just put in the hard work and be able to manufacture outcomes by keeping it simple, get to the basics. All right, till next time.